Welcome to your final lesson before the midterm. This lesson is on numbers and should be fairly straightforward. Hebrew does not use number figures the way we do in English. Instead, Hebrew will always write out the name of the number using letters. You can see the name of the number going down the left-hand side of this chart. You need to memorize the masculine absolute number name for each number because that is the basis for all of the number names. These are called cardinal numbers, referring to 1, 2, 3, etc., as opposed to ordinal numbers, which is first, second, third, and following. Memorize the masculine absolute numbers using the link that is provided to a song. You do not need to memorize the numbers in the construct forms or even in the feminine form. You simply need to be aware of the changes that take place. In the masculine construct form, vowel reduction takes place, as is typical of nouns in the construct state. You will also notice that changes have taken place in number 1 and number 2 in the masculine construct form. The vowels have completely changed, slightly reducing but also changing, in the construct form of number 1, and in the construct form of number 2, the number is no longer in the dual, but is now apparently in the masculine plural of the construct, because there is no dual form of the construct. Again, you do not need to memorize this list, be aware of the changes instead. In the feminine absolute, a comet's hey is added at the end of each cardinal number. The exception again is number 1 and number 2. Number 1, instead of having a hey at the end, replaces the dalet with a tav. Number 2 again returns to the dual, only now it is a feminine dual, shatayim, rather than the nun, shanayim. Again, you do not need to memorize this list of numbers, only the masculine absolute, but be aware of the changes that take place in the feminine. In the feminine construct form, the hey is replaced with a tav, again very common for the feminine singular in construct nouns. Number 1 remains exactly the same in the construct form as in the absolute. Number 2, on the other hand, returns to a plural form rather than a construct form because there is no construct dual, although the tav remains rather than the nun because this is a feminine. Again, no need to memorize the second, third, and fourth column, only the first, but be aware of the changes that take place. Numbers 11 through 19 are formed by adding the word for 10, asar, as an absolute noun with the ones number, cardinal number 1 through 9, in the construct state. You will note, though, that the gender of the ones number, 1 through 9, is the opposite of the absolute noun. So in column 1 with masculine nouns, the absolute noun is in the masculine, but the cardinal number that is in the construct is actually in the feminine. This reverses with feminine nouns. The absolute noun ends in se-re he to indicate feminine, but the cardinal number in the construct is now in the masculine. To form the numbers 20 through 99, simply add the masculine plural ending hirik, yod, mem to the cardinal number 3 through 9. You'll notice that 20 is not formed by placing the masculine plural ending on the number 2, but instead on the number 10, so that 20 is actually tens and is understood as 20. Whenever numbers are in a string, for instance, if the number was 44, the number 4 would come before the 40. So we would have araba, arabaim, 44, or 4 and 40. Numbers 100 through infinity are formed in the same way that the teens were formed, only instead of pairing the cardinal number with the number asar, 10, they are paired instead with the word meot, 100, mea, in the feminine construct state. You will see this in number 300 on the chart here. 3, shalosh, hundreds, meot. When mea is found by itself as 100, it appears as it does at the top of the column, mea, or as 200 in the dual, matayim, and then going into the feminine construct state in 300 and beyond. The same is done with thousands. 1,000 is elef, 2,000 is elpayim, And 3,000, again, with the absolute noun placed into a masculine plural form, alapim, similar to the way that we saw the numbers 20 through 90 formed, and placed with the cardinal number, this time in the feminine construct, because the previous number will be the opposite of the absolute noun, similar to the way that numbers 13 through 19 were formed. 10,000 is ravava, which really just means a lot, since rav means multitude, although we can have two alots placed into the dual, ravotayim, meaning 20,000. 30,000 appears to be an unusual form because here we have shalosh revot. We might expect shaloshim elapim, which would be 30,000. For whatever reason, though, this is an exception, and we have shalosh revot, 3 alots, 30,000. The ordinal numbers, first, second, third, etc., are formed in the masculine with a yod on the cardinal number. You'll note that vowel reduction has taken place as though the words are in construct, and that the aleph on the word for has dropped. The feminine, rather than a yod, adds a yod tav. You'll also notice that first does its own thing as usual. This is not the word one with endings. Instead, it is the word head or chief, rosh, with endings, so that we have rishon and rishonah. You do not have to memorize the ordinal numbers, simply be aware of the pattern of change that takes place. You may wish to memorize first in both the masculine and the feminine because it is quite different, but the rest of the numbers can simply be noted as having the yod or the yod tav suffix. Well, there you have it. We have already reached the end of our lesson. Be sure to memorize the names of the numbers in the masculine absolute from 1 through 10, as well as how to form the numbers 11 and beyond. You may also wish to memorize the name of 100, mea, 1,000, elef, 10,000, ravava, as well as the masculine and feminine names for first, rishon and rishonah. Beyond these, simply be aware of the patterns which change in order to offer up the construct, both in the masculine and the feminine, as well as how to form the feminine endings. Also be aware of how we end up with ordinals from cardinals. Be sure to use the Quizlet to reinforce this information. Memorize your vocabulary, and I will see you in class.